I know my girlfriend's a ghost. I don't tell you that for headlines. I tell you that because I opened my front door to her smile on the same morning her mom called to tell me she was dead. You click away if you find that too much. But if you ever loved someone so hard it rewires your notion of what's possible, stay with me. This one's real. My name is Donovan. I'm an engineer by trade. Practical, level-headed, the type to keep spare batteries in a labeled drawer. I worked with Maya 5 years ago when my life was a grid of to-do lists and takeaway in the small hour. I was fresh out of university, and whoever thought that things could be resolved if you stared at them long enough with an Excel sheet? Maya came into my life like a melody I'd somehow learned the lyrics to. We collided at this tiny neighborhood hardware store in Santa Ana, no less. I'd gone there for a set of screwdrivers. She was in the paint color aisle weighing her options. She asked me, if true, whether eggshell was too try-hard for a rental. I had a geek observation about diffusion of light on matte surfaces, and she laughed that hard the manager looked over. We left with the wrong paint and a right number. We were effortless from the start. Not fireworks every second effortless. Just consistent. Like a soothing touch on your back reminding you where the door is in a crowded room. We'd shop for groceries on Saturday afternoons and park by our carts like it was the draft. She'd pick odd little snacks, seaweed, dried mango, and I'd roll my eyes, then grab half the bag on the way home. She added softness to the edges of everything. I learned flowers don't need a reason. I learned you can dance while a pot on the stove cooks. I learned to save the last bite for someone else, and to reserve the ending of the film to see on the night after so that you have a build-up to something. She could just get me to stop working and go outside, and just let the sun bake the hood of the car. Might as well take it, she'd say. It doesn't cost anything. She moved in to stay with me after perhaps a year. We shared a tiny, sunny apartment with a peek at the sea if you stood in the kitchen window just that way, the sea air creeping in like an old acquaintance. I was faring well. My job took a turn and opened up the gas. We placed a jar on the counter with "someday" scribbled on it and quietly added extra dollars to it with a grin. The punchline was that "someday" was shorthand for a bigger space, a dog, maybe children if we saved up to it. The non-joke was the trust. The nuzzle of my hip with her hip as she passed by the sink. The way we always kept the other's favorite cereal on the shelf. Little stuff that made all else seem doable. By the 3rd year, we acquired the bigger house. A house a few blocks from the beach, close enough to catch salt in the morning breeze, far enough that we could still park. I can't even start to put into words that first night. We had takeout on the floor, the house becoming increasingly quiet around us, as if to listen. She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "We're going to fill this place with something good." And I believed her. We started talking about children in a way that wasn't different from talking about dinner. Not in an announcement of great significance sort of manner. More like, where would a crib even fit? Or is it possible that our child might be an early bird or a night owl? We planned one Saturday afternoon to walk through a park, and we sat on a bench and watched a group of kids running after a soccer ball in a cloud of dust and noise. She was holding my hand so tightly and telling me, "You're going to be such a patient dad." I laughed and told her she had no idea how impatient I was. She said, "Then I'll teach you." I never knew anything so firmly in my life. And that's not how I'm designed. Engineers don't do sure. We do margin of error, stress test, contingency plan. But with Maya, I was sure. I started studying rings. I didn't utter a word to anyone. I went through all the jewelers in town like an actor auditioning for a role he'd already been hired for. I learned about cut, clarity, setting, prongs, and metal alloys more than I ever wanted to know, and nothing meant anything until I looked at this one ring in a case by the window. It was 3 carats, but it didn't shout. It held the light in its mouth like a breath. It glowed like the way she smiled when she didn't smile yet. Don't even ask how a gem does this. It just did. I knew right then. It was fitting to her somehow. I purchased it on impulse. The guy who worked behind the counter said congratulations, as if he knew a secret. I left like it was made of glass and hope. I put the ring in the back of my sock drawer, like all those cliches you could think of, with pride beaming over my very obvious secret place because I knew she never rummaged around. I planned it all out. 5th anniversary dinner at her favorite place. This charming Italian place on the street parallel to the beach where they give you extra bread if you tell them about your day. Table by the window, the sea breathing quietly in the blackness, her hair up the way she used to style it when she wanted to get dressed up. I pictured my voice strong, the way it sounds in large meetings. I pictured her hands, the way they would shape when she'd ask, "Are you for real?" Because that was her yes. I just could not resist going for the ring in the drawer, just to ensure it was still there, just to experience that relief rush my backbone that all was fine as planned. A week to our anniversary, I had a call from a strange number while mid-email on calibrating sensors. I almost sent it to voicemail. I did not know why I picked up. Is this Donovan? A calming voice asked. Yes. St. Matthew's Hospital. There's been an accident, and Maya is here. She listed you as her emergency contact. There is no way to explain how quickly your life becomes divided into before and after. It is quicker than a dropped plate. One word, and the air is too thick for your lungs to breathe through. I don't remember reaching the hospital, only that I'd parked crooked and my hands refused to stop shaking. I'm a scene of panic hater. I made one. I approached 3 people and asked them where she was, and none of their directions struck. And then there was a nurse with nice eyes who took me to a room. She told me to take deep breaths, and I did because it seemed like an order. Maya was present, sleeping, quiet. She had monitors and lines that she rested on, and the kind of quiet that makes you think that you should whisper. She appeared, frail, like a woman who labors every day. I extended my hand and placed it across the railing and let her know I was there. I let her know I would stay. I told her all about the ring and the restaurant and the bread and all. Her mom was there too. If you ever have witnessed a mom clutch her adult child's hand like she is 5 years old again, you get the kind of love I'm talking about. We sat beside one another and watched the numbers on the board increase and decrease, and played a game of imagining that meant something. The doctor came in and explained a lot of it. He was solid. He didn't mislead me on things he couldn't provide, and I envied that and resented it. I wish someone would tell me what to do with my hands. We did a week like that. Moved chairs around. Swapped her lip balm so our lips didn't crack. Texted kind messages back with no change yet. Lived on cafeteria coffee and mints because the thought of anything more tightened my stomach. Folks were nice. Folks brought blankets and crossword puzzles and silence. I kept the ring box in my pocket as a worry stone. I prayed, sort of like calling up an old friend I hadn't called in a while. On the 7th day, the nurse said to me, "You have to go home and rest. Shower. Change clothes. We'll call." I did not want to leave. There is this superstition you pick up without meaning to. Like if you're in the room, you're holding something from letting go. But I smelled of waiting room and I was starting to think in circles. So I went home. I stood under the scalding water until my fingers wrinkled. I wore a new t-shirt that didn't even feel like mine. I brushed my teeth twice. My head was like a radio station between stations. And then, this is where I don't know how to let you in slowly. I grabbed my keys, opened my front door, and there she was. Maya, hair all messy and pulled back. My old sweatshirt now hers. She smiled on the porch, so tiny and so warm that I forgot how to breathe for a second. "Hey," I said, like a laugh, because that's what you do when everything that's broken suddenly looks like it's going to be okay. Her eyes shone like they do when she's tired but proud of herself. I reached out to hug her, because you do that when your heart unclenches from being a fist. She stepped back, hardly at all, and the smile remained. She said nothing, not one word. She didn't have to. It was as if she'd said, I needed to be home. She pushed into the house. I felt the air shift, cold and unmoving. She walked down the hallway without the floor creaking the way it does always in the third board. I heard that, and I felt funny. I talked myself into the house being settled. She turned into our bedroom and sat on the end of the bed as if that was what she'd wanted all along. The blankets moved as she pulled under, just her shape and some hair on the pillow. I stood in the doorway and watched her breathe. I could have sworn I saw the covers rise with it. Maybe I needed to know that. "I'll let you sleep," I whispered, and it was like a promise. I turned off the light, left the door half shut, the way she liked it. I sat down on the couch and set my phone face down and allowed my muscles to let go one by one. I slept there to the cacophony of a house being a house, refrigerator hum, a car passing, the ocean in the distance singing its familiar song. I woke up 4 hours later as if I'd been called. The light was warmer, that honeyed afternoon light that had a way of making everything taste sweeter. I considered, okay, I'm going to go in there with the ring. Because life had just taken a detour that had managed to put us back on track, and there are some moments you don't wait to be perfect. I took the ring box out of my drawer. It felt heavy in my palm, like a truth. I smiled until it ached my cheeks. I was ready, twitchy, yes, but ready. My phone beeped. I picked it up, Maya's mom. I picked it up in the hallway outside our bedroom, so I wouldn't disturb her. Her voice was the exhausted that results from burning all you're scared and running on something else. "Donovan," she said, and my name sounded loved. Then it sounded broken. "She's gone." I didn't understand. The world lagged like an app in need of a reboot. "What do you mean?" I asked. Confusion makes your voice sound gentle, like you don't want to shrink the other person with your words. "She passed away this morning," she explained, words frugal, wrapped in tissue. "I'm so sorry." "No," I said, and it wasn't mean, it was slow, as if I was telling her about the weather. "She's home. She came home. She's asleep." I heard my own hope like a rebuttal in a vacant theater. Her mom released a whooshy breath. "Oh, sweetheart." She said my name, which her daughter used. "I've got to run. Call you later." She hung up before I could request something that couldn't be asked. I stared at my phone. It went directly to my lock screen where we were the photo, her nose pressed against my cheek, both of us sunburned from the beach. I turned the handle. I opened the door. I was clutching the ring box, held open, like it was a physics problem or something. She wasn't there. The bed was flat, the pillow sleek, dressed just the way I'd left it that morning when I pulled my exhausted frame to the hospital. The light, a thin remnant, hung in the room as if it had nowhere else to be. Her shampoo perfume hung around in a thin manner, like a dream memory. Something inside me went very, very still, then very, very loud. I cannot describe it except that I was two men then. The one who was desperate to run across the house, and the other man who could not make his feet stir. I had the ring in my hand, and time did something that I am still mad about. It warped. It enabled me to be all the me's that had imagined that proposal, and all the me's who never could. I settled down on the corner of the bed that she had sat in, and the mattress dipped under my form with that wee sigh it always gives, and I stared at nothing. I called the hospital. The nurse's voice was gentle in a way that makes you want to throw your phone against the wall, because gentleness can be like a mirror. She said it was so. She spoke in terms such as peacefully and "I'm sorry." I wrote down a date I'll never forget and don't want to hear right now. I thanked her as if I were calling for business, because at times we behave the way we know when what we know fails. I did not weep for a long time. My body entered solve the problem mode. That's the nature of grief. On the surface, it can be a list of things to do. Call her mother back. Get a shirt. Return a casserole dish someone borrowed. But below it, all of the rough edges of you are being redrawn in real time. I returned to the living room. I grabbed the blanket we always fought over because it was large enough for one person to burrito nicely. There was still one of her curls stuck in it. I carried it into the bedroom and spread it where I had been able to catch her shoulders. I thought if I did that, I could trap her shape again. It's funny, the rituals your heart creates. I opened the ring box and spoke to the room. If you've never asked someone who won't be able to answer, God bless you if you never have. I said everything I'd practiced at the restaurant. That I'd loved her from aisle 12 of Home Fix when she rolled her eyes at eggshell white. That I'd loved her when we were chuckling about counting coins in the someday jar and whether tacos or saving this week ranked higher. That I'd loved her when she pulled out her first gray hair and refused to rip it out because she liked the evidence she existed. That I still did. That I would for the rest of my life, whatever that took. I set the ring on the nightstand. It caught the light and did what I'd bought it to do. It kept it there. Made it move in a way that wasn't unkind. More like a vow in a language I didn't know. I slept fitfully that evening. I listened to our house be our house to both of us. The house groaned in the hallway, which I'd always thought sounded ominous when we first moved in, before we realized homes speak. It was a sigh. Maybe I needed it. The next few days were the kind you'd drive through if you could. There were phone calls and paperwork and hugs. It was so strange the way everyone cheered for the same person, each one of us with his or her own detail. A teacher, a cashier, a cousin, like we were all describing variations on the same hue. I and her mother sat at the dinner table, and we jotted down stories and songs, and somehow laughter caught up with us in between the soft spots. It wasn't the laughter that says, "This is okay." It was the laughter that says, "We're here." People asked me if I dreamed of her. I didn't. I think that's the bargain I made with the universe. I got a goodbye the way that one couldn't possibly exist. I had to witness her retreat into our house, dig under the blankets of our existence, and I could feel her say, without words, "I know." Not goodbye. Not "don't forget me." Just "I know." That was the last that I ever laid eyes on her. There were two kinds of days after that. The ones in which breathing was hard, and the ones in which forgetting to breathe was hard. I kept my hands occupied. That is how I manage. I secured a wobbly shelf. I cleared out the takeout menu drawer overflowing with menus she'd insisted on keeping because menus somehow seasonally change. I tried going back to work. Engineering didn't quite feel right. Fixing things felt smaller, then it felt nicer. I stopped staying late. I stopped measuring my worth by the amount of time that lapsed before I responded to an email. She would have liked that. Sometimes I catch myself setting out 2 mugs. I kept doing it anyway. Some habits are a kind of little altar. I watered the plant she'd pulled out of a clearance rack. It hated me first, and then leaned over the window to forgive me. I bought strawberries during winter as well, as she used to. The ring stayed on the nightstand for a while. One half of me thought that if I put it around my neck, I would never take it off. Another half of me wanted it to lie there, waiting, with a light that belonged to someone and no one. I'm not selling you a ghost story. I don't think she haunted the house. Nothing floated, Nothing slammed. Nothing whispered my name from the blackness. It's not that. It's calmer. It's that I think, maybe like an engineer convinced by an equation, that she came home to rest. Folks talk about passing like it was a journey. Maybe she had one more destination. Maybe she asked for it. Maybe it was already occurring at the hospital when I was standing in the corridor with my idiot phone and my great hope. Maybe time performed its malleable trick and give us a grace. There were times when I wasn't so sure about my head. I was exhausted. I hadn't eaten well. Did I dream her? No. That's the part one can't dispute. I can describe you what her hoodie felt like as she brushed the back of my hand while moving past me. I can describe the manner in which she looked at the bedroom door the way you look at a quiet lake you've swum 100 times and you know that it will catch you. I can describe the manner in which her silence did not sound empty. It sounded simple. I sought therapy because love doesn't have to be you carrying it all yourself. My therapist wanted to know if I thought that she stayed because she believed I needed her to, or because she did. I said both. Grief plunges you into this weird geometry where two things can be true at once. It doesn't break you. It expands you. One day, I took the ring to the ocean. Not to throw it away. Don't worry. I'm not that dramatic. I strolled down to the water like we always did after dinner if the sky appeared pleasant. I saw kids run in and out of the waves, and I saw a dad teach his little girl how to jump at precisely the right time when the foam comes in. I pulled out the ring and held it in the sun, and it sparkled with sunlight as it was meant to. Some old lady sitting on a towel saw me staring at it and asked, "You proposing or remembering?" I replied, "Both." She nodded as if I'd given the right answer. I made up my mind at the water that day. I did not return the ring, not put it away, not pretend it never occurred. I'd bought it for something real, and that something is still real. Not the dinner reservation, not the video call to her family, not the Instagram post we'd possibly quarreled over. The fact that I wished I'd promised her the whole of my gray existence. The way I desired to be her haven and let her be mine, even though being human is complicated. The resolution then? I do not think of this as a resolution, maybe, but I can't tell you what came into focus. I was not piecemeal before her, and I am not dismantled afterward. But I am different. Love does that. It reconfigures the furniture in your heart, and you never want to change it back. I wear the ring on a necklace around my neck when I have to be brave. Other times, it is nowhere to be found. It sits on the nightstand and catches the morning light, and I greet it as an old friend because it is one. I get to see her mother once a week. We make one of Maya's recipes and do it incorrectly in some new way each time. We laugh. We weep at different moments in the same story. We don't attempt to fix it. We don't attempt to make it into something else. The gift is that it occurred at all. When people tell me move on, I kind of imagine a hallway with doors you go through, closing each one behind you, coming to a new wing of your life where the floors are different and nothing has the same echo. It's not that. It's kind of learning to grasp something properly so it doesn't hurt so badly. It's learning to be a person who knows something that not everyone knows. That goodbyes do not always arrive as what you expect. That sometimes the last time is also a blessing. So yeah, if you were to quiz me in the midday sun with working shoes on my feet and coffee in my mug if I'm a believer in ghosts, I'd tell you the truth. I believe Maya came back home to sleep in our bed one time more. I believe she smiled so she wouldn't scare me. I believe she left when I went to embrace her because love isn't necessarily having what you want. Sometimes it's about letting two worlds be apart and still make contact. If you're reading this in the dead of night, with your own house emitting the gentle clicks and whirs of being alive, maybe you get it. Maybe you've seen something out of the corner of your eye of someone or something that didn't frighten you, but caught your attention. Maybe you've smelled someone's cologne out of the blue or found a penny heads up somewhere it shouldn't exist. Or maybe you've just dreamed so vividly you felt as though it were a gift placed in your lap by someone who couldn't make it onto your doorstep. Whichever it arrived, I hope it felt like love. I still have the dinner reservation confirmation email that I retained. I retain it, but I do not open it. There are things retained, but not for something else, like a smooth beach rock. Not all things must be a lesson. Not all things must be a project or a puzzle. There are things that will be a place you find yourself in your head where the bread is warm. The window looks out over a soft, dark sea, and someone you care about is going to say, "Are you for real?" in a voice that will be etched in your ears forever. If you've made it here, I don't have a bow for you. I have thanks for 5 years that changed me. I have a ring that glitters. I have a house that appears still to be listening. And I have a belief that the scariest parts of life are also the kindest parts. I hope that you will get to love someone the way that I loved. I hope, if and when you must, you find a goodbye that is like a hand on your back nudging you toward the door of a crowded room. If you've ever had something like this happen, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this video touched you even a little bit, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell.